Angela Martin and her son Paul were on a train to the leafy suburbs. They had been traveling for over 2 hours already, including changing trains twice, and they still had about an hour to go. Paul was looking aimlessly out the window, not very interested in his surroundings as usual. Angela, on the other hand, was fidgety and distracted. "I'm looking forward to meeting Samantha again after all these years, so I want you to behave yourself, please, darling." Paul looked almost hurt. "I always behave myself. You did ask me to come. Remember, I know you do. I'm just a bit nervous about meeting her again. It's been so long. I thought you might get along with her daughters. They're about your age, 18 and 20. If they're anything like I remember Sam, they'll be stunners." "Don't worry, Mom. I won't embarrass you or myself," Paul said, smiling and pushing some strands of hair that had fallen loose of his ponytail back behind his ear. Just over an hour later, they were walking on a narrow footpath, keeping their eyes peeled for any sign of Samantha's road, when a white transit van sped through a huge pool of water on the roadside. Angela just managed to step in front of the wall of water it threw up, but Paul, who had been walking behind her, was hit with such force that it knocked his skinny frame to the ground. When he got up, he was soaked and dripping smelly brown water from head to toe. "Well, there go my chances of making a good impression." "Oh, come on, let's find this house," cried his mother. 10 miserable minutes later, they stood on the doorstep of Samantha's large house. She was insisting they step in before Paul got a chill, but his mother said there was no chance she would let him ruin her lovely carpet. It was cream and deep pile, in case you're wondering. So Paul stripped right there and came into the house wrapped in a towel. "Don't you worry about a thing, Paul. We'll have you clean, dry, and warm in no time," said Samantha, noting how skinny he was for his age. "Run up and knock on the second door on the left. Kim will let you use her ensuite." He headed up the stairs feeling pretty foolish and not looking forward to explaining himself to this girl. He knocked and she told him to come in. She was pretty. She was leaning lazily through a magazine on her bed. He tried to explain himself as well as he could, but he thought he came off like an idiot. Kim just smirked and pointed to the bathroom door. "My mom said you were 19, like exactly between me and my sister Becky. She can be so out of touch sometimes." "What age are you?"
You.
"I am 19. I'll be 20 before the end of the year." "Really? I mean, you don't look it." "Sorry, but you're what? 5 feet 6 inches, and you're so skinny." "I don't mean any offense or anything." "No, none taken. I'll just have this shower now if you don't mind," said Paul with his cheeks glowing with embarrassment. He got into the shower, used the shower gel and shampoo he found there, and emerged smelling sweetly, with a growing sense of unease about what would happen next. He was naked in the strange girl's bedroom. He poked his head out the door of the shower room just as Kim was coming back into her bedroom. "Your mother said she would sort out my clothes." "Yeah, she put them in the wash because they were so dirty. She asked me to sort you out with some for the time being, but you're so small I don't think we have anything that will fit you. Do you have any brothers?" "No," she said, stroking her chin and looking him up and down in his towel. His limbs were pencil thin, and his waist was amazingly slim, like closer to 20 inches than 30. "How about something of your dad's?" he said sheepishly. "Huh, you've got to be kidding. Dad's no giant, but you'd be swimming in anything of his. Even Becky's stuff is going to be way too big for you." "I don't want to wear anything of hers," he blurted out, sounding way ruder than he meant to. Kim looked a bit peeved at his ingratitude. "Oh, really? Were you thinking of something of my mother's, maybe? I don't know if she'd allow that, even if they would fit you." She could see Paul squirming as she said that, and she loved making guys uncomfortable, so she pushed further. "I'm thinking if we had kept any of my clothes from 10 years ago, they'd probably be a perfect fit for you, but we didn't. I hope you're not too disappointed." Paul was beyond squirming now. He had a knot in his stomach. "I just meant if you could just get me. Are you trying to give me orders? Your mother said you would be happy with anything I could find you, and that you wouldn't be any trouble. Should I tell her what a pain you're being?" With his knees beginning to tremble and his throat gone dry, Paul squeaked, I'll be good."
Fine.
"Maybe I can find you something, and we'll try and keep you out of trouble today. Wait here, and I'll talk to Becky." She left the room, leaving Paul no choice but to wait and see what she offered him to wear. He couldn't risk going down to his mother, as she'd be bound to blame him for embarrassing her in front of this family she thought were so perfect. He wished he had never even come with her now, and he just resolved to get through the day without bringing any shame on himself or his mother. If I behave with dignity, they'll have to show me some respect, he thought. Next door in Becky's room, he heard giggling. Angela and Samantha had had a really good catch-up chat. In some ways it felt as though they were the same girls that they were at 16 when they had last met. There were still the same imbalances as there had always been, although Angela had always felt them more than Sam. Sam had come from a well-off family that had become even richer as she grew up, so much so that they had moved when she was 16, separating the two friends. Now she was married to a senior banker and living in a large house in the leafy suburbs. Angela had always felt like second best to Sam. She came from a loving family of far more modest means. She had raised Paul alone following a divorce way back when he was 3. Angela didn't have a car because she couldn't afford one. Sam rarely used hers because she was used to being driven wherever she wanted to go. "Girls, dinner is ready," she shouted out the kitchen door. "I swear they pretend to be deaf sometimes just to annoy me." Paul, on the other hand, seems like such a well-behaved young man, Angie. "You should be proud." "Oh, thanks, Sam. I still think of him as my little boy, when he's really a man already. And your girls are so beautiful. I'd have loved to have had a daughter myself if I had had another child." Let me tell you, you'd be surprised how quickly it goes from hair ribbons and playing with dolls to fighting with them over the length of their skirts and the amount of makeup they pile on. As if on cue, the kitchen door opened, and the girls filed in giggling. First the girls, still in their skinny jeans and tees, their standard outfits. Paul was not in a standard outfit. Sam turned from the counter where she was making the final dinner preparations. "Well, it's about time." "Paul, honey, you must be starving." "Polly Pissy Pants." Becky erupted into laughter. "Polly Pissy Pants. You remembered. Isn't she perfect?" Sam tried to put on an angry face. "Becky, Kim, this is not funny. What on earth?" Then she burst out laughing too. Angela, meanwhile, was sitting at the table with her mouth hanging open, looking at Paul, the son, who was not going to embarrass her today. There stood Paul dressed in a tiny blue cotton dress, white ankle socks, and black patent high-heeled sandals. His long hair was in pigtails tied high on either side of his head with blue ribbons, and the ends hung down to his ears. Loose strands of hair fell either side of his face. Sam recovered enough to explain. "Polly Pissy Pants is a doll of Becky's from years ago. She sits on a rocking chair in the old toy room now. I haven't taken any notice of her in years, but I'd know that dress anywhere. And, before you ask, no one can remember where she got that ridiculous name." That was believable, thought Angela. It looked like a doll's dress with the short cuff sleeves, gathered waist, and impractically short hem. Kim was wiping tears from her eyes. "Honestly, Mom, that was the only thing that fit him." "Oh, come on now, Kim. Seriously, Mom, he's so tiny." As if to illustrate, she stood right beside him, putting her arm around his shoulder. Her 5 feet 8 inches frame, made firm and athletic by horse riding and hockey, made his skinny limbs look positively delicate and showed off the extra inches she had on him. Then, without warning, she grabbed his hand and easily spun him in a circle, making the hem of his dress fly out and displaying his gleaming white satin underwear to everyone in the room. "Oh, Kimmy, you're embarrassing Paul. Are you all right staying like that for dinner, Paul? It's going to go cold if you change now." Paul, almost too ashamed to have his voice come out of the glossed mouth of Polly, spoke very softly while delicately fingering the hem of his dolly frock. "I am hungry, thanks, but I'd really rather change." "This is just too much," he said, looking down at his naked legs and feet perched in the gleaming heels beyond the poof of blue dress that flared from his waist. "Oh, come on now, Polly. You've only just gotten dressed. Why go changing again so soon?" broke in his mother sarcastically with a look on her face that told him exactly how much he was embarrassing her. Becky was pulling out a chair at the table for him, with a grin on her face. Samantha looked at him kindly. "Yes, stay for dinner, Polly." What could he do? He carefully made his way across the kitchen floor, heels clicking, petticoat hissing, pride vanishing, knees buckling, face burning, eyes watering, lip trembling, head spinning. Almost 20 years old, a young man looking like a delicate human doll. All eyes in the room followed his graceful progress, silently. Paul, now Polly, sat pushing food around his dinner plate. He couldn't bring himself to eat a bite. The one forkful he had eaten had felt like a sponge in his dry mouth, and his stomach was in a knot. Every time he started to relax, he would catch sight of one of his pigtails out of the corner of his eye or glance down at his hairless porcelain thighs, and immediately would be reminded of this crazy situation. Everyone else at the table seemed fine. They all chatted away about this and that, barely paying him any attention. Sometimes Samantha would look over and smile warmly at him. She seemed like a really nice person. Kim and Becky were taking turns dissolving into fits of giggles, which was not helping matters. In fact, his mother was the only one who was studiously ignoring him. She was trying to foster an atmosphere of absolute normality by endlessly talking about anything she could think of in a vain attempt to keep everyone's attention from the fact that her son was sitting across from her looking like a teenage girl dressed like a doll. "So, Polly," Kim piped up, "are you enjoying your little dress up as much as you thought you might?" That sounded bad. Paul squirmed, feeling his satin-covered backside slide back and forth on his chair. "This isn't what I wanted to wear. I asked you for something else. I didn't want a dress like..." He looked down at the dress again, lost for words. "I know, honey, but none of my mom's stuff would fit you. You're even too little for Becky's things, I'd guess." No, that was not the way. It was like being dressed so humiliatingly in front of everyone had short-circuited his brain, so he just babbled. Now his mom and Samantha would think it was his idea to dress like this, that he even wanted to wear something of Samantha's. Silence. Samantha spoke. "Glass of wine, Angela?" "Yes, yes, please. A big one." And off they went to the living room. "Well, that's Mom busy for the night," said Becky. "Hey, Paul, you haven't seen my room yet. Let's go have some fun." A long couple of hours later, Paul was again descending the stairs on his way to ultimate embarrassment in front of the two women. He knew exactly why their jaws were dropping despite all the wine. As he meekly stepped into the living room, they saw that the girls had seen to every detail in dressing him this time. Sleek straightened hair, glamorous French-tipped nails, a huge amount of tan from a can, low-rise bootcut jeans, and a short white halter top. His jeans disguised the height of his platform heels. "Polly phase too," the girls cried in unison. "My goodness, girls, you have really outdone yourselves this time. I could swear I was looking at a beautiful young lady. I'm glad to see you have toned her look down from earlier. She looks very classy." Paul, meanwhile, was looking at his mother and realizing that her jaw wasn't dropping out of shock, but rather because she was asleep, sitting up on the sofa. Her open mouth betrayed her drunken state. "I'm afraid, Paul, your mother was very tired, and the wine has sent her right to sleep. I think it would be best if you both stayed the night, darling." He wanted to argue, but before he could, Kim interrupted. "That would be perfect, Mommy, because we really wanted to bring Polly over to Charlotte's house for a while. Please say it's okay. I texted her to explain everything, and she'd so love to meet Polly. We'll go straight there, and come home well before bedtime. Please, please, please." She said it in the practiced patter of a girl who is used to getting exactly what she wants, and of course Mommy gave in easily. "Well, all right, but you must take extra special care of Polly. No dallying or horseplay, and be nice to our new girl," she said, seeing them out the door and giving an appalled Polly a little hug on the way out. When he asked where they were going, Kim reminded him that if he shut up, maybe they wouldn't post his new photos on Facebook. That threat had been working pretty well all night, but in a choice between exposure on the internet and getting beaten up on the streets. "Is Charlotte's much further?" he kept asking. "We're not going straight to Charlotte's. Her parents are away, so she's having a party later, but first we're going to town for a few drinks. Come on, the train station is just at the end of the road." Although no one paid them much attention on the train, Paul was a nervous wreck. He couldn't believe how nerve-wracking an experience it was to be dressed like this in public. He was thanking his lucky stars that he was in jeans when Kim grabbed his arm. "Come on, we need to visit the toilet for a bit." He followed her dutifully, trying to keep his balance in his towering heels on the moving train. Kim was all business in the tiny toilet cubicle. Right, get those clothes off. We need to glam you up a bit, so you get into the club without ID. Paul wanted to argue some sense into her, but he just imagined his friend's reaction to those pictures if they got onto Facebook and did as he was told. She put him into a denim miniskirt and a super stretchy neon yellow jersey tube top that came down over the top of his skirt. It clung to his chest, accentuating his padded strapless bra. The neon yellow really stood out against his deeply tan body. And to complete the picture, Kim backcombed his hair to a huge volume and attacked his eyes with kohl and mascara. She further deepened his look with dangly earrings, oodles of lip gloss, and way too much blusher. Stuffing his clothes into her big shoulder bag, they were done. He caught sight of himself in a mirror as they were leaving the cubicle. Oh God, Kim, what have you done? I look like a slapper. Please don't make me go out like this. I can't.
I'll die.
I'll just die. Kim laughed, called him a drama queen, and dragged him back to their carriage. All eyes were on Paul as he tottered back to his seat, crossing his legs tightly. He looked up to see the faces of women and men openly staring at him. Did they know he was a guy, or did they just think he was a major tart? He tried to calm himself while the girls sexed up their own makeup and their compacts. To anyone looking at them, he would seem like the one who didn't know when to stop with a fake tan and big hair and makeup. He kept tugging the hem of his skirt down, hoping no one could see that his satin knickers matched his tube top perfectly. Leaving the station and on their way down the main street, his attention-grabbing outfit continued to get looks and raised eyebrows, but a lot less often as the three of them mingled with more and more pubbers and clubbers on their way out for the night. Paul was still on high alert, though. His heart was out of control behind his padded push-up bra. His hairless, tanned, baby-oiled legs felt weak at the knees, perched gazelle-like on his delicate heels. His black-rimmed eyes blinked nervously as he scanned for reactions in people's faces, wafting his long, false eyelashes up and down like miniature crow feather fans. "How's my skinny little girlfriend enjoying herself so far?" asked Kim. "Bloody hell, Kim. What satisfaction could you possibly be getting from this craziness? Did you not have enough fun embarrassing me at home or on the train? I could get beaten to a pulp doing this in town tonight. Come on, call it off, please." "Chill out, Polly. Don't piss your pants. You're getting attention for your outfit, not what's under it. Everyone thinks you're a hot piece. Just enjoy it and stay in character. Swing those hips, girl. That's it. Just do what I say for a while longer, and I'll cut you loose." They ducked into a busy pub for a few warm-up shots, which Paul found calming his nerves a little bit. He was far too on edge to get drunk, though. Kim and Becky were both texting away like mad on their mobiles. After a while, Becky proudly showed Paul the text on her screen for Mommy. "Okay, honey, enjoy your sleepover at Charlotte's. Angie is still out for the count, so I put her to bed. Be nice to little Paul, though. He seems a little lost. Maybe Charlotte could loan him something pretty to sleep in." Oh no. Not only did this confirm his fears that Samantha suspected he was really into this, but that meant they had him for the night. He suddenly felt very small and helpless. His behavior certainly did not match his appearance, as he nervously bit on his glossy lower lip while done up like a hot club veteran lost in a sea of oblivious 20-somethings. He unconsciously took another shot glass from one of the sisters and knocked it back. It suddenly occurred to him that he would never recover from what had happened tonight. Maybe the booze was bringing out his dramatic side, but how could this experience not damage his masculinity? His conception of himself as a man was already shaky due to his diminutive size and the fact that he didn't fit the archetypal man role in any way. He had crossed a line tonight and carried on very far beyond that line. He was deep in strange territory. His manhood was not in peril. He had relinquished it. In his drink-addled mind, he decided that he would be in costume every time he wore men's clothes in the future. He'd be a pretender. At that very moment, the crowd in front of his unseeing eyes parted to reveal a section of mirrored wall, and for a moment, he didn't recognize himself. He checked out the pretty Polly from head to toe before realizing she was mirroring his moves. Her hand shot up to her open mouth in shock. Her thighs squished together in a giddy disgust. "I'm no man. So pretty.
So weak.
I'm live.
Fake.
Delicate. Failure. Glistening and pretender. Exposed.
Hidden.
Revealed.
Raw.
Metamorphosis. Scared, sacred, pure, pain, profane. Disjointed thoughts and images flashed through his head in an instant, like a light-speed download shooting up from the base of his spine into the back of his eyes. His mind reeled from the intense complexity of the contrast of opposites that he felt slipping inside him like desperate eels in a bag. "You've ruined me. What am I supposed to do now?" "Count yourself lucky we're being so nice, Polly dearest," smirked Kim. "Seriously, I'll never recover from this. You've taken my manhood. My advice would be to lighten the up, Paul. You think it's degrading to be a girl. That's what the real problem is. All I'm doing is giving you an insight that most men will never have. You could learn something if you weren't such a sniveling little winner." "Oh, really? Well, where to, oh wise one? Where does my education continue? The bar, maybe? The ladies?" "No, smartass. McDonald's. McDonald's, final refuge of the damned and pit stop for the drunk." Both parties were represented, but the latter were way ahead in numbers. When the three girls entered, slightly the worse for wear themselves, the place was bustling and a dull roar of shouted and slurred conversations was hanging at ear height. They made their way up to the counter, mostly unnoticed apart from the odd conspiratorial nudge and nod in their direction, mostly by guys who were facing the prospect of going home alone. They made their orders. The shots still sloshed around inside Polly's head, making it spin a little. Feeling looser than she had earlier, she still occasionally pulled at the hem of her denim mini, remembering to keep her legs together. None of them spoke, and the look in Kim and Becky's eyes told her that they were feeling the alcohol at least as much as her. Trays full of food arrived, and they paid, and started to file down. Through the tables, Polly bringing up the rear. And then whoosh. Polly had that lovely weightless falling wild drunk feeling as her foot slipped on a splotch of mayonnaise on the tile floor.
Bang.
She hit the floor ass first, letting out an involuntary wail of pain on impact. Tears instantly squeezed out between her black-rimmed eyelids. Feeling something cold on her legs, she looked down to see her chocolate malt was sitting neatly appended on her crotch. Thick, delicious milkshake was all over the front of her skirt and was pouring down her exposed underwear in rivers as she sat with her legs open to the crowd. "Oh no," she bawled as everyone turned to look. The quiet murmur started to rise into a cacophony of laughter. No sympathy here. Laughter, pointing, camera phones by the score, but no sympathy. Eventually Kim came to the rescue, helping her up by the arm and dragging her to the toilet. By the time Polly had calmed down, Kim had cleaned up her eye makeup as best she could, peeled off her knickers and skirt, and wiped her clean with tissues. "You're such a bloody embarrassment, Polly." The restaurant had just returned to normal when they reappeared, Polly desperately hoping no one would pay them any attention. As if on cue, the first wolf whistle rang out. All heads turned to see the milkshake girl looking like a frightened rabbit. Gone was the miniskirt. Her long, bright yellow boob tube had been stretched to full length in an attempt to cover her now bare bottom half. She clutched desperately at the front of her new dress, bending over slightly for maximum coverage, causing the top to give a great view of her cleavage in her push-up bra and causing the back to crawl right up to her red and tender butt cheeks. In this pose, she took tiny steps navigating the gauntlet of laughter and abuse. "Come and sit on my lap, love. I won't let you fall. Are you going commando, darling? I bet she is. The arse on that. Oh yes. Her milkshake brings all the boys to the yard. Yeah, high five." Just as she was leaving, she saw in the reflection of the glass door some idiot emerging from the ladies with the soaked knickers held aloft. "Mind if I keep these, love?" Memento of the best laugh in ages. Out into the night.